Today we're going to talk about our second paper in the Humanities 115 course. And this is your Worldview paper. Um, we learn in Chapter 2 that a worldview is a philosophy of life, a set of fundamental ideas that helps us make sense of a wide range of important issues in life. And it sounds good, right? But how do we get here? We all have a worldview, whether we've ever really looked at it or not, you know. But I'm asking you to look at it. What made you who you are, especially in the way of ethics? So, your morality, your way of working with other people, your way of working in the world, all that fun stuff. And so, I'm going to walk through the assignment sheet and go over a few things that I think are um, usual kind of tripping up places, and hopefully you won't trip up. So there is a assignment sheet for this. It's on Blackboard, course information, major assignments, and then scroll down to paper 2. Okay, so this particular essay is about your ideas about a worldview and how yours came to be. Okay, and so how did you figure out those fundamental ideas? How do you use it to make sense of things? Okay, so there's that kind of tension as well. For the essay, think about your journey as a narrative. And a narrative is just a story with a point. Okay, I tell lots of stories. Some of them have points, some of them don't. But this is your story, so it's your story with a point. Okay, and the point is, how'd you get here? How did you become the person you are? Um, Good, bad, indifferent, kind of stuff. So we're going to do this in 3 parts. Okay, so with the other paper, I like things in 3 parts. I also like to get you thinking and writing about what you're going to write early on in the process. And so the first thing you're going to do is the questionnaire. The questionnaire is, I'm going to say it's 3 pages if you print it out. But it's a series of questions rated from 1 to 5. 1 is a not so much, 5 is a yes. And there are different sections: your early life, your education, your religion, mentors, making decisions, that kind of stuff. And so those are things that I want you to think about, because those are the kinds of things that should end up in this particular paper. And so you're going to highlight or somehow mark the numbers, and then you're going to, at the end of each section, there's a place for you to say, okay, I chose this as a 5 because, or I chose this as a 1 because. And sometimes things that we know about ourselves, we don't consciously think about them. And so this is going to be something to help you consciously think about it. The other thing about consciously thinking about something that we just kind of use on a daily basis and don't really think about is sometimes you go, oh, I really do think that. I don't want to think that. Good time to change things, right? So the questionnaire is one of those early things, but it's going to help you have a good base for your paper, okay? The rough draft, more or less complete iteration of your worldview paper, I'm going to give you some comments. Sometimes it's just, yay, you've got the right idea. This is wonderful. Yay, move on. Keep going, keep going. And sometimes it's, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But you're doing a good job, and you're doing a good job with the paper. So, onward. The final formal paper, use your best, most correct English, write it as an academic paper. Even though it's about your life, you can write about your life in a way that is not slang, not, stream of consciousness, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to look at the grading criteria here in just a minute. But remember, this does need to be about at least 3 pages. Okay, so try to get on the 4th page. Double spaced, 12 point, Times New Roman, Garamond. Okay, 1-inch margins, normal. And then the grading criteria is on page 2, and it basically sets up the order, the arrangement for your paper. Now, you can mix and match, mix up those sections if they make more sense to you. You can do a straight chronology, whatever works, okay? But make sure that you've done all of these things. One is introduce us to the idea of a worldview, and what yours might be if you had to write it in a sentence or two. And then origins, okay? So your upbringing, your background, you know, your reasons for um, doing things the way you do them. Um, Compare your worldview with at least one other option. A lot of my college students compare theirs to their parents. Sometimes they're a lot the same, and sometimes they're very different. Um, your best friend, your whatever works there. Okay, and then you have to give me at least one example of how you use your worldview. So you know, or you've heard that certain people in your class, in your group, are cheating on tests or cheating for assignments. They're basically getting their stuff online, or the teacher has said, like I do, no AI, and they're using ChatGPT or something like that to make their homework and such. And you have a choice to make. Do you go along with the crowd? Do cover for them? Or do you turn your back on them and stay true to your integrity? Um, if you're asked about it, do you tell? Um, and it's one of those things where our worldview and a few other things, psychological things going on there, makes it harder for some people to not conform or to conform. It depends on what side of that you're on, right? Make sure that you're using good transitions, that you have a clear organization, that all of the same ideas in the same paragraph. Okay. Um, Now I know when I'm telling a story or I'm telling somebody about a book I've read or a movie I've seen or whatever, sometimes I forget something back here, and I'm going along. Oh, yeah, back here this happened. In speech, we have to kind of go back and make our case there. In writing, if you realize you've forgotten something, you put it back where it belongs. Okay? Move things around. Anyway, um, make sure that you do an MLA or APA paper. You have to have 3 pages of text. That doesn't include anything else. You will not necessarily need a works cited page or a reference. This is all about you, comes out of your head, comes out of your life experience. If you quote something or somebody in there, you might want to tell us where this comes from, but you can do that in the paper. You don't have to have a works cited page. Okay, but again, proofread it, read it out loud, make sure that you've got the best language moving forward, and we'll be good. Okay, now most of us are pretty good with a narrative. We want to tell a story. Okay, if it's been a while since you've had to actually write one out, or excuse me, you've never written a story about yourself, the Purdue OWL online writing lab is the best one out there. I have a link to it in our writing helps section there under course information. I also have it as one of my extra sites on my internet page, my browser. It is the place to go if you're trying to remember how to cite something or learn how to cite something, or you've got a question about usage. They have a whole section of stuff for folks who are English language learners, English second language, foreign language learners, however you want to say it. They have a good section for that. And they have, it's like your little writing handbook, but it's online and searchable and all that kind of fun stuff. But yes, they have a section on narrative, um, writing a narrative for a college class specifically. And so you can see how that works as well. Remember your definition and make sure that you're spending enough time on the questionnaire to get a good base. And then we're going to do the rough draft and final draft fairly quickly together because it's not a paper that requires, documentation or citations and things. And so you don't have to worry so much about that. But it is something about you personally. I love this assignment. I've been teaching this assignment since I first started teaching this course. And for some folks, it is the first time you've ever been asked, so how did you get to be you? And so 3 pages may seem like a lot, but once you get started, even if you've only been around the sun 16 or 17 times, you have plenty to say. Those of us who've been around the sun a few extra times, you can choose an aspect of your life to explain your worldview. You can pick and choose, obviously. You don't have to tell me about your whole life. You don't want to hear about my whole life either, so it's okay. The other thing is you can write as much as you need to, okay? The longest paper I've had for this assignment is 27 pages. You go, 27 pages? I do not expect you to write 27 pages. If, though, you need to write 27 pages, by all means, I will read it. I had, like I said, the longest I've ever gotten is 27 pages. This young man was young, I think he was 18 or 19. He was, out of high school, but just barely. And he wrote 27 pages and he was all apologetic. And I'm like, it's okay. Sometimes we need to, put it all down. He says, nobody's ever asked me anything like this before. And he grew up in the foster system. His parents were, I believe his parents were addicts. And so he was, bounced around with family and then bounced around in the foster system. And so it was a wonderful and horrific by turns paper, okay? All the things that this young man had gone through, and you would never know by looking at him. And that's kind of true for all of us to different degrees, maybe, but there are a lot of things that you've gone through that nobody knows. And if you need to talk about them, talk about them. Write about them in the paper. Great, no problem. I'm not a counselor. I have a good background with that, but I'm empathetic. I want this to be useful for you, but I also want it to be something that you can be proud of. This is my story. Still have that tickle. So write what you need to write, at least 3 pages. Follow the directions. Do what you're supposed to do. You know how that works. The assignment sheet and the folder also have your due dates for the various pieces. And remember that it's 2 homeworks and a 10%, just like the first paper. So we'll get through it. It's all good. I think this is one of the best assignments I've ever made as far as helping students understand not just the course content, but their own kind of response to that. So anyway, if you have questions, send me an email. You know how to get a hold of me.